All right, everyone. So welcome to the second session of this project management in practice program, which we have kicked off last week with session one. Session one was about conducting a study phase prior to launching any project. We discussed about the business case, the components of the business case, how to create it, what are the key areas of a study. So we wouldn't launch a project without a study phase. Yeah, we went through the business case template. We've shared the recording also on YouTube. We've shared the templates also. You can find the link to the templates that we have used, like the different templates, such as the PESTEL template, the SWOT, the decision matrix, etc. We've all put them on the drive, and we have shared the link to the drive, the description of the video of the video of the business case of session one on YouTube. In today's session, we will go through drafting a charter and kicking off a project. Now, let us first of all explain to you what is the context of the session. So before we start going through the technical parts of it. So what makes you project manager is really the way how you treat, handle, shape, and form the project. Okay, so whenever you're managing a project, you gotta give it the shape and the form of a project. Okay, that's what makes you a project manager. So we said last time that the project goes through different phases. Traditionally, those are the initiate phase, the planning phase, the development phase or executing phase, the monitoring and controlling phase, and then the closeout phase. Okay, so these are typically the phases of the project. Now, right now, we will go through a very important step in the project initiation, which is drafting a project charter. Okay, and kicking off the project. Now, according to PMI, usually it is the sponsor who drafts the charter because the charter is the document that officially authorizes the existence of the project. Okay, and it's usually drafted by the sponsor, but not all the sponsors have time to do it, or not all the sponsors are knowledgeable in project management. So usually the project manager steps in and helps with drafting the chart. Okay, so in today's session, we will go through drafting a charter. We will use an example of an electric vehicle charging stations company that is specialized in building and installing the charging stations. Okay, and we will go through the project charter template in the first part, and in the second part we will discuss how to kick off a project, or how can you successfully do it. Okay, because kicking off the project is not just about letting everybody know that we're starting a project, but it's also about ensuring their commitment and their engagement in this project, because when stakeholders are committed and engaged into the project, then that will guarantee a big part of the project's success. All right, so now let's have a look on a typical template for project charter. Of course, we will leave this template for you in a link, this description, once we upload the video on YouTube. Okay, and also you can find various templates online. Actually, we do have another template that we share with our participants in the PMP training. Okay, let's kick it out. Let's kick it off. Let's kick off this session. All right. Now, drafting the charter is really important, and you as a project manager, you gotta make sure that you fill out all the sections. And remember one thing, one really important thing: the project charter is not supposed to be a detailed document. The project charter, it the project charter provides high-level indication, high-level information to help the stakeholders of the project understand what is this project about, what is the background of the project, what are the objectives, a high-level project timeline, a high-level projected cost, etc. All right. Okay, now in the charter, of course, in the first section here, usually we fill out a general project information, such as the project name. Here we have a project called Electric Vehicles Stations Installations. Okay, who is the project manager? So we made up some names here. We call the project manager Bernard Law, and the project sponsor is Stefania Sanchez. Okay, so these are made up names, and even the company's name is made up, just to help you understand how to fill out this charter. Again, here we have put the email address of the project manager, a phone number, made up phone number. I think it's Canadian number probably. And in which organizational unit does this project belong, or to which organizational unit does this project belong? And we put here field engineering and project management. So this is a one unit, probably with multiple departments, but it's called one unit because probably this company is specialized in engineering for electric vehicles. All right. Now, this general project information section is really important. Of course, you can add here any other information that you see important, such as probably if there are any other names we need to mention. I'm not talking about the names of the people that will approve the charter because those names are mentioned at the bottom of this document. I'm talking about, for example, some other companies, they prefer to add a process owner, continuous improvement owner, etc. So, feel free to add whatever necessary information. That's the minimum that we have suggested in this document. Okay. And then in section 2, we will move on to the project overview. Now, of course, we will start with stating what is the background or what kind of issues do we have, or is the problem that we're trying to solve. So to help the stakeholders who probably, because not all of the stakeholders are aware of the project or understand the history or where is this project coming from. Not everyone has seen the business case, etc. So at least to help everyone understand the background of this project, or where the problem is coming from, or what's the problem we're trying to solve. So here I've put in bold always in all sections almost the most important information that should attract the vision of the stakeholders once they see this document. So here, for example, we've discussed the problem as due to missing charging stations in the southern regions of the country, the councils of the different cities have contracted with our company to install 1,350 electric vehicles charging stations at 216 locations across the country to accommodate, and here we mention where these stations, these 1,350 charging stations, where will they be installed? They will be installed at the malls, the service stations, the gas stations, in order to respond to their charging needs. Okay, so here we've given a glimpse on the background of the project and what kind of problem or issue we're trying to solve. Now, that's very, very important because it's really important because everyone on the project needs to understand where do these needs come from. Okay, so that's what we have just tried to describe in the first section. Of course, you do not want to make this long. You make it brief, just to help everyone understand the background, because further details are either available in the business case or in other documents that will come later in the project lifecycle. Okay, because all the details, especially the detailed planning, detailed scope, etc., that will come later in the planning phase. Now here we are still in the initiation phase of the project. Now, what's the purpose of the project? Now here's something very important also to state in the project charter. So here, for example, in our example, we said that the implementation of these 1,350 electric vehicles charging stations, what will they do? They will reduce fossil fuel emissions as set by the law. So we're trying to abide by the law. and have a positive impact on the environment. Okay, now these are two important purposes of this project. Also, this will help fulfill our company's mission of what? Of being the world's largest EV charging provider, and also reduce the environmental impact of fossil fuel cars through our services. Now, these are the purposes of the project. Some of these purposes, they're related directly to our company. Some of the some other purposes are not, but at least they explain the whole purpose and aims of the project, and that's important to help everyone understand what are the purposes of this project and be on the same page, because you can always have stakeholders who disagree on the purposes and also on the importance or necessity for the project. So this will help everyone understand what are the purposes and agree on them. And that's a tough point that you need to consider as a project manager, because you can always end up in discussions with the stakeholders. And that's why we said in the last session that having the business case can really, help you as a project manager justify the existence of the project, especially the sponsor who actually should do that. Because if anyone would question why do we need such a project, you can always refer back to the business case and they can always review it. Okay, all right. Now again, in the section in the subsection 3 here, we wanted and actually I wanted personally to keep this business case section, because just to let everyone know that this project didn't come from nowhere. It's actually based on a business case. And here we summarized what's inside the business case, okay, what's within the business case. So, they would know that actually there was a study phase before the launching this project. So here we have put a summary of the business case. So as electric vehicles have become more prevalent, more EV charging stations are needed to accommodate the EV drivers' charging needs. The implementation of the 1,350 EV charging stations at the 216 locations across the country to accommodate the malls and service stations charging traffic. This will reduce the length to which the EV drivers would have to travel, and later in this document we'll explain by how much time we're cutting that down. Would have to travel for their next charge. The implementation of the EV charging stations will also result in a 24% profit for our company. And I have highlighted specifically this sentence because I know that key stakeholders in the company always look for profit. Okay, so that's why then I highlighted this one, because 24% profit for our company is a good number, right? Also, then here I have tried to specify in this charter what are the metrics that we will be using in order to evaluate the performance of the project, or we can call these the key performance indicators, KPIs. Of course, these indicators didn't come from you as a project manager only. Actually, probably here you have reviewed the PMO, the sponsor, other key stakeholders. Probably you have looked at the history of different projects, lessons learned, etc. So then, history of similar projects, of course. So then you came up with these three key metrics that we'll be measuring throughout the project in order to report on the performance of the project. And these are revenue growth, client retention rate, and customer satisfaction. Okay. And I think personally that these KPIs are the most important for any stakeholders in the project. Okay. All right. Then we will move on to defining the key deliverables. Okay, in this document, you will not list all the deliverables, because the list of all deliverables might be huge, but here we will list the key and most important deliverables of this project. And here we've put example of 850 electric vehicles standard charging stations at 150 locations across the country. And here, of course, we will probably have a list. You can, add there an attachment and see check the list, for example, 500 EV Express. Now, these are express charging stations at 66 locations. Okay, so that means in each location we will have standard and express. Okay, then also the pollution clearance certificate from the 216 locations. This will be also a deliverable from this project. Okay, that means right after we have installed the stations, we guarantee that it's pollution free, and then we get clearance for that from the relevant offices. So also that will be one of the deliverables, because probably that's mandated in the contract between our company and the different malls and charging stations, or probably the different councils of the cities, because those are, I think, the main client, or the original client actually. And then user training. Also, we will be providing as a deliverable from this project user guide, or probably user training, etc. So here we have highlighted the most important deliverables. Okay, and you do not state them in details. You do not add technical description now. You just add really like brief description, just to help everyone know have a good idea about the project, because all the details will come later in the next phases of the project. Okay, now we will move on to a very important part of this project charter, which is the project scope. Now, in this section, it is really important for you as a project manager to make everyone understand in this project what is within the scope and what is outside of the scope. Now, what is within the scope is something probably obvious for everyone. They know, yeah, we need to know what you guys are going to work on. That's clear. But, as an experienced project manager, especially if you've worked on similar past projects, or in case you have checked the lessons learned from all similar projects, you might have come with a conclusion that in such projects you need to specify which items you and your team will not be working on, because if you will not specify them, then the stakeholders might think that, you know what, we would expect that to come out of the project automatically. Okay, which is not the case probably. That's why you need to specify what is really outside of the scope of the project. Okay, and here, for example, we have specified that what we will work on within this project is the installation of the specified charging stations at the designated locations according to the list provided, connecting the charging machines with the power grid. Okay, that's within the scope of this project. Delivering training to the different staff members at the specified or chosen malls and service stations. So here, that's something we will do. Okay, so we will have a finished, complete solution for charging electric vehicles and also full training. But here also we specify what's outside of the scope of the project, which means what we will not be working on because we're not competent, or actually that's not included in the budget, or simply that's not part of our scope of work. Here, for example, we've clearly specified that obtaining any third party or clients' approvals or location preparatory work, such as the permits for the digging, the city region electricity availability logistics, etc. All of that is outside of the scope of the project, and we have to make it clear to the stakeholders, because the councils of the cities, and also probably the representatives of the different malls and service stations, probably they will be present, or at least the councils of the cities, they will be present at the kickoff meeting of this project. So once they sign on this document, they will approve, and they will agree that they should not expect any such work from us, because it is clearly stated that it's outside of the scope of our work. So you really have to make sure that you state that clearly in your project charter. Okay, all right. And then here in the charter, of course, you as a project manager, you will try to present a tentative schedule, what we call a milestone schedule. Now, remember, this is a charter. You do not list here detailed tasks or work packages. No, actually, you will list just milestones, their target dates, okay? Just to give the participants or the stakeholders an overview on the timeline of this project. When is it supposed to start? What are the key milestones, their target dates, and when is the project's projected to finish. Okay. Now, this timeline is subject to change later in the detailed planning phase, and you might bring then later a slightly different timeline, but not that much different. Okay. So here, probably to prepare such a milestone schedule, you will need the help of certain experts with you, which we will see later, as mentioned in this document. Um, and you, as a project manager, you don't come up with such a schedule by yourself. And also, you will have to check if there are any time constraints specified by the sponsor or other key stakeholders. And also, because this charter you'll be creating and you'll be, working back and forth with the sponsor, because, you'll be creating version one or draft one, then you go back to the sponsor, they will give you their input, and then you make some updates, etc. Not only with the sponsor, probably also with some key stakeholders. So this will help you even to adjust this schedule. But again, you really have to, have the support from key technical people, because especially that this is a technical project. So for example, here, some of the milestones or key milestones we've listed, having the charter finalized and the project kicked off. That's supposed to be done by the 1st of April 2022. Acquiring the team, that's supposed to be done by the 18th of April 2022. Having all the project plans completed, that should be like the scope plan, the cost plan, the schedule plan, the quality plan, the resource plan, the risk plan, etc. All those plans and sub plans, as we saw in the PMP training, that for example, you project to have it done by the 13th of May 13th, 2022. Completing all the and the installation of all the standard charging stations, that should be done by the 31st of January 2023. And then, finishing the installation of all the express charging stations, you project that to finish by the 2nd of August 2023. Testing all those charging stations, validating the results, etc. That should be done before the Christmas break. That should be on the 15th of December 2023. Then, delivering the training to all the staff members. That should come in the new year, after the new year, the start of the new year. That should start on the 1st of January and finish by the 3rd of March 2024. And then finally have the project summary report, all the approvals and the closeout. That should be no later than the 6th of March. And usually, dealing with the sponsor and stakeholders, they usually would state the start date and end date. That's what they know. That's what they really try to mandate. And then what's in between, that's up to you and the team how to handle it and how to plan it. So usually, what we think is that the councils of the cities, they probably clearly stated that they want this to be done by early spring 2024. So somehow you try to commit to that. But again, the detailed plans will come later during the planning phase. Okay. So this is a tentative schedule, and it's called, really, I mean, we made clear that the name of this section is called tentative schedule. So we're trying to commit to it. Nothing is promised for sure. Nothing is guaranteed, but at least, it's an indication. All right. That no. Anyway, even the exact plans will not be that different. That much different. Probably a couple of weeks. Plus minus couple of weeks. Maximum a month. Either earlier or later. Okay. All right. And then in the charter also, you as a project manager, you probably will want to state, the key project resources that you will rely on in this project, especially who will be part of your project team. So of course, here we've come up with some roles and some names. So Mike will be the installation engineer. David Lee will be the chief engineer. Now it seems like we have a team that we've worked with before. That's why we know their names. Rita Preze will be a connectivity specialist. Lisa Jones is the QA director for this project. Ahmed Badr will be the field engineer. And Musa Kamara is going to be the test lead, reporting directly to Lisa Jones. Okay, so these are the key project team members. Then probably we will need some support resources from operations, from sales, from project management, from also different engineering departments. Here we did not list who by name or by specific roles, but we mentioned the divisions or departments. Details will come later, in the project plans. And also, we might need special support, especially for people from, IT department, specialized in IT support and in mapping, since we will need then to create a map for all the charging stations and where we've installed them exactly, and have their coordinates, their map coordinates. So then that will make it easier for the drivers, to locate the nearest charging station. And for this, we need people from the IT department specialized in mapping and support. Okay, so these are the key resources we need for the project. Again, you as a project manager, when presenting this charter to the stakeholders, you make sure that they understand that, again, these is a summary and details will come later. Okay. Now, one of the most important sections that stakeholders usually look for in the charter, same as in the business case, actually, okay, it's not that different, which is how much will this cost? Now, again, now it depends really on whether the sponsor has given you a specific budget that you have to stick to, and usually that's the case. Okay, especially when we're talking about a project with the public sector, the councils of the cities. Usually they would give you a number and they ask you to perform the project within that number. Or in some cases, they just ask you how much will it cost, but usually, that would have to go through a tender and etc. So now, regardless, all right? So here we've come up with some estimates. Of course, those are not real numbers and probably not even covered, but, just to help you out, guys, when you'll be creating your project charter. So here we've put there the cost type, the vendor or the labor names, the rate. Rate could be per hour, per unit, depends. The quantity again could be hours, units, etc., and the total amount. All right. So here I've put labor coming from the Electro Charge Logistics Incorporation. That's the vendor. The rate is $78 per hour, quantity 200 hours, so that's total of 15,600. Labor coming from level one support, total 4,600. Labor again for level two support. We will need from level two 50 hours, from level one 100 hours. That's 2,900. Again, we will need then fast chargers. We will need battery vendor. We will need power conversion system vendor and third-party software. So here we ended up in a total of 455,000 as total cost per location. And per location, that could probably be like few charging machines per location. Remember, we have 216 locations and 1,350 charging stations in total. So that's probably like, 5 charging stations per location, mixed between standard and express. But, that will be the total cost per location. And then you multiply that probably by the 216 and you end up having your numbers. Okay. So, but you have to be specific whether that number is total for the entire project. And that's what usually stakeholders look for. Or is it per location? Of course, because this chart, we didn't want to make it complex. And in this example, we chose to have those high level figures by per location, but then it's up to you how you want to do it in your project. Okay. All right. Then in the charter we have added a section called benefits and customers. Okay. Now, you don't have to add that section in your charter, okay? Because the charter does not need to be long. If you noticed, we have used large, characters, actually, maybe you could summarize all that in one page, if you wanted to, All right, because at the end you probably could just list, for example, the total cost per location, and then you just make it in a small table to total cost per location without all these details here, then multiply by the number of the locations and have the overall product cost. But just try to give you a little more details just to help you have different ideas. Again, this section called benefits and customers does not have to be in the project charter. It's up to you actually if you want to have it. Put it there just in case you want to, add different sections of the charter. But again, don't make it long. Usually the charter is a summary page. It's a one pager. But sometimes you could go up to 2 pages, but not more than three, definitely. All right. So here, what could be the benefits and who are the customers of this project? So the final customer will be the malls and the service stations at the different 216 locations across the country. And here we've put, between brackets, see the attached client list. If you want to, have full details about all these locations, the malls and the service stations, etc. And the expected benefits of this project would be, again, I've highlighted in bold here. So the implementation of the 1,350 EV charging stations at these different 216 locations across the country to accommodate malls and service stations, EV charging traffic. It will reduce the length to which EV drivers would have to travel to their next charge by 50%, which means if usually a driver will have to drive up to 20 minutes, to find the nearest charging stations, now that time will be cut by half. And then the driver will have charging stations really close by, at about 10 minutes drive from their home or their location, which is pretty good actually. Also, the implementation of the EV charging stations will result in a 24% profit for our company. And again, that's something we have already mentioned earlier, and it is also stated in the business case. You do not want to repeat information in the chart, but here, just with the explanation I'm saying here, I'm helping you, understand how you could probably draft the charter and keep your stakeholders attentive. Now, what would be the benefits? Here we're talking about financial benefits, actually, out of this project. So here we list in the type of benefit, the basis of estimate, and the estimated benefit amount. So specific cost savings, we'll have some cost savings at around $825,000. We will have enhanced revenue at about $792,500. We will have higher productivity, and that's in the soft part of it. And this is product management estimations at about $317,500. We will have improved compliance. These estimates are coming from operations at about $412,000. Better decision making. Again, these estimates probably are part of a let's say a Six Sigma project or an improvement project, because within this technical project we're having also a continuous improvement project based on a Lean Six Sigma approach. So that's why we're listing these benefits. So the decision making would save us around $818,500. Less maintenance, if we will apply the new process. Okay, and that's estimated at $226,000. And any other cost that we will avoid, that will be estimated at around $546,250. So here we will have a total benefits or total savings at about $4 million. Okay, and we're not talking about the commercial benefits of it. We're talking about what kind of savings if we deploy, for example, continuous improvement or Lean Six Sigma and within this project. Again, that's just an example. Okay, you could list in your charter straight the commercial benefits, or you could just put a sentence there, please refer to the business case for the commercial benefits. Okay, and you could just put there the total number. And again, be careful. You might want to be careful with what numbers you list here, because it depends on the audience who is joining this kickoff meeting or who will be looking at this charter. If this charter is internal for our company, then of course you could share these numbers. But then, if this charter actually is going to be shared with external stakeholders, such as the customer or vendors, etc., so you might be, careful with what you share with them. Again, so I've just mentioned that to you. So it's really up to you what you want to put in the charter, because the content of the charter also depends on the audience. Some people ask, does it mean we will have a few versions or different versions of the charter? Yeah, you might. Yeah, you might. It's either one generic version of the charter that could be shared with everyone without any specific or sensitive information, and then everyone could look at it, review it and approve it. Or you could have, a couple of versions, and that's what we usually do. When we have a commercial project, then we have a charter with a customer that is shared with the customer and approved by both parties, contracting parties, and then we will have our internal project charter. In which we list probably more detailed information such as revenue, profit, etc. Okay, so that section is really up to you how you want to handle it and manage it. Okay, then we move on to the last page here. A very important part of this charter is to talk about key project risks, constraints, and also assumptions. Okay, now you don't want to list all the risks that have been identified for this project, but you might want to list at least the most important ones, the highest priority ones that will need immediate attention from the stakeholders right before the kickoff or the start of the project, because probably those risks, if they happen, they might be a huge blocker. So, for example, in this example charter, we've noticed that we still do not have the approval for installing the electric vehicle charging stations in 3 different cities. Now, 3 different cities, that probably could mean around 50 to 100 locations, because in each city there are multiple locations. So this is a huge risk of delays that could, there's a huge risk of delays. So here, as the mitigation plan, project management team will have to work with the councils of the cities to ensure that there are proper permits in place, and especially in time, in order to finish the installations on schedule. Now here we've listed this as a risk. Later on in the planning phase and the risk register, we will go further into details regarding these risks. Okay, and we are keeping everyone aware of such a risk. So all the engaged and involved parties will have to work with us towards handling these risks. Okay, constraints also, here we've listed some constraints. So we sort of have lack of resources in this project. So we will have to backfill some key project management and field engineering positions, and ensure that we have people on the ground, in place, on site, in order to manage these different charging stations implementation installations. So we'll let you know about this. Probably this is something you might wanna share internally and not with the customer, because that's internal matter. You don't want to scare off your customers, but again, as I said, depends. Now really make sure that you're careful with what you share and with whom. Now always depending on your audience. Okay, and also here we've listed a very important assumption. Okay, assumptions are something that's not happened yet, it's not true yet, but it's sort of important to pay attention to, because it's kind of a condition that we've put here in order to be able to proceed with the project work. So here we assume that all the permits for installation for the electric vehicles charging stations will be provided by the clients by the time of the implementation. So we're assuming this. Now, once the clients they approve this charter, that means they're aware of these assumptions, and they understand the need for them, and these assumptions are called the conditions Okay, so at least from the beginning, we've listed all the risks, constraints, and assumptions, and that's really a mandatory section from my point of view in the charter, because people need to be aware, and all of the people need to be on the same page in regards to the different specific details of the project. Okay, now in this charter, up to now or until now, we've listed what I think are important sections. This charter is not so much different than the one that we share with our students in the PMP training. I know, and you can really change the different sections however you want. And the last section of the charter is actually who will be reviewing and approving this. So here we've listed John Carter as the CEO, and they have to put their signature and the date. Ali Sharif as a CFO, again, their signature and the date. Christina Wolf, this is the engineering director, the director of the Department of Engineering. Again, her signature and the date. Stefania Sanchez as the sponsor. And probably here you might want to add, again, looks like this charter is internal because it contains different financial data. And in case this charter will be shared, or you'll be sharing a charter with the users or the customers of this project, then of course you will have to add other names such as the directors or the managers of the malls, the surface stations, the heads of the councils of the cities, etc. Again, who will be reviewing, approving this charter depends. Is it an internal charter, or is it a charter that you will share with your customers and partners? Okay, so now once you have finished creating your charter as a project manager, what would you need to do next? Now, next, first of all, you will need, once you have the final version of the charter, you will need to share it with your audience, whoever will be joining the kickoff meeting, and also the key stakeholders. Though you will have to send out this charter, with clear message in an email in written form, of course, to all your key stakeholders. That mainly the stakeholders that will have to look at this chart, be aware of the project, understand what's the project about, etc. Usually, personally, as a project manager, I do this usually like a week before the kickoff meeting, and then I start on creating the presentation out of this charter, because in the kickoff meeting I will not be going through the charter word by word. I will be having a presentation, summary presentation of the key. So I will turn this Word document into a PowerPoint presentation. So I would go them through the key sections of the charter, and then 3 days before the kickoff meeting, I will send out a reminder. And also, when I send out the invitation for the kickoff meeting, I'll make sure that I attach again the charter. And again, it really depends on who's joining and what kind of which version of the charter I will be attaching. And then in the meeting invitation for the kickoff meeting, I will be also attaching the meeting agenda. Okay, now let's have a look together. Now we've went through the project chart template. And then, of course, once your chart is ready, you will need to have a kickoff meeting with your project stakeholders. Now, in session 3 next week, we will be looking at the project stakeholders, how to, identify them, how to prioritize them, how to, engage them and deal with them. But until now, you're, still in the beginning or in the initiation phase of the project. So you will have to create a kickoff meeting agenda. Okay, so this is just a template. You could have your own. You could, change the topics. So, but in the kickoff meeting, you'll have to make sure that everyone joining this kickoff meeting will understands and knows what we'll be discussing in this meeting. And right after the meeting, you will be sending out the meeting minutes to everyone who have joined and who have not joined. Okay, I mean to all the parties who have joined and the ones who have not joined. Okay, so for example, you as a project manager, you start with a welcome and introduction. It could be done by you, it could be done by the sponsor. Now it really depends on the agreement between you and the sponsor. And then the background discussion on where does this project come from, that could be led by the sponsor, or yeah, generally by the sponsor. Then you as a project manager will be introducing the stakeholders to each other. It's not doesn't mean necessarily they don't know each other, but sometimes we have new stakeholders in the project, especially for the external ones. So you'll be presenting the stakeholders and their roles. And then you, as a project manager, you might want to go through the different sections of the charter. Again, it's going to be on a PowerPoint presentation. Again, the project objectives, the timelines, the project cost. Of course, depends again on who's attending. And then, of course, you need to make sure of something really, really important, which is, are all the stakeholders on the same page? Do all the stakeholders understand what is this project about? What are the aims, the purposes, what's needed, project main risks, constraints, assumptions, etc. And you will make sure that everyone understands that by asking them directly, especially the main stakeholders, the key ones. Do you, and you have to ask them one by one. You don't do it like in a classroom with kids, like, oh, do you understand? But you do it differently. You find a way how you do it. You make sure that you look at them, you see the faces, and in case someone seems like having some unclarities or not really understanding something, you make sure that you go to them, address them by the question, and ask them what kind of further clarification might they need, etc. But you really need to make sure that all your stakeholders really understand all the necessary details of the project, and especially they do understand the roles and responsibilities in this project, because some stakeholders might not really understand what they're supposed to do on the project. Yeah, you don't stakeholders are people, and sometimes the stakeholder is assigned to a project by their manager or their director, and sometimes they have no clue really what that project is about. It happened to me several times on my project, so I needed really to make sure that they all understand, the different details of the project. Okay. And then before the closing of the kickoff meeting, you need to make sure that you highlight to them the next steps. They understand now, right after this kickoff meeting, what everyone needs to do. And here, something I used to do, on my projects, if I could have all the stakeholders, physically present in the meeting, then probably I have prepared a hard copy of the charter, and then have a round table on the stakeholders in order to sign the charter. But if I have or if some of the stakeholders are present, online, that's gonna be a little tiring, and then I will have to agree with them on a mechanism for approving the charter and the deadlines, and I will be somehow chasing them, to approve the charter. Uh, and they have all to understand that we cannot start the project without having all the necessary approvals and signatures in place. That's why you, as a project manager, you need to make sure that if you know in advance that some people will join online, you have prepared the approval mechanism. I mean, technically, how will they approve it? How to have their e-signatures and document, etc. Okay, you need to make sure that that all is explained in the meeting. And you make sure you send out the meeting minutes of that kickoff meeting to everyone who was present, and also to everyone who was not present, because some people, maybe they were not able to join. Of course, if you have key stakeholders that really they must be present and who could not join, of course, you will have to postpone the kickoff meeting after discussion and review with the sponsor, because you don't want to start any project, even have a kickoff meeting, in case some really, really, really key stakeholders were not available. All right. Yeah, and here you will have to have the support of the sponsor. Okay, so you make sure that you send out the meeting minutes, and make sure that you put there a sentence that if no questions or objections will be received within, let's say, 24 hours or 48 hours, whatever deadline you put there, then you consider that everyone agrees on what was shared, and and then you make sure that you have all the approvals before you can move on to the next phase of the project, which is the planning phase. Okay, so this is what we wanted to share with you guys today. We wanted to be really to be a practical project management. This is not a theoretical course. This is how we do it. I've shared with you examples last week in the business case session. We shared with you an example. Today in this session, we have shared with you again an example of a project charter. And in every other session of this practical program, we'll be sharing tools, templates, on how you really you manage it. And be sure, guys, if you apply really everything that we will see in this program in each session of it, then you're supposed to be able to manage your project in the right way with the right steps. And we're providing you with the tools and templates just in order to help you, to help you with succeeding in your projects. Okay, so I hope that the content of today's session was clear. We wanted to make it as short as possible, as simple as possible. And also, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out to me. You can always find me on LinkedIn, on WhatsApp, or you can leave a comment on our YouTube channel. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining this session, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you on next week's session, and it will be about managing your project stakeholders engagement. Okay, thank you everyone, and probably we'll be meeting next week.